There can be only one podcast, and may it be the Prince of the Universe. Hi, folks. I'm Matt.
And I'm Wes.
Hey, you know, everyone loved our wrestling episode.
Everyone?
Everyone. A lot of people did.
All 11?
Was it 11?
111?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, good.
I'll have to check it out. But no, so we're going to do Dark Side of the 90s.
We've already done Dark Side of the 90s.
Oh, Dark Side of the Ring. Excuse me. Dark Side of the Ring. We did Dark Side of the 90s last week.
This is your first podcast?
I guess so.
Amateur hour.
I'm telling you.
Good thing you're working with a pro.
It is a good thing I'm working with a pro here, or else I'd be screwed.
Keep your eyes open, your mouth shut. You might learn something tonight.
Hey. Learning and fun. I might learn something before it's done, huh? Mm-hmm. But anyway, no. We were talking about we talked about wrestling, how to fix wrestling, and then we talked a little bit about Dark Side of the Dark Side of the Ring. Goodness gracious, said it again. Dark Side of the Ring, the plane ride from hell.
Correct.
Episode. We touched on it. Well, I'd watched that. I mentioned that to you, and then I thought, hey, you know, maybe that's something for me to. You've been watching it, and I wanted to watch them all, and so I kind of binge watched them, and they were great. They are great episodes. There's probably only one that I just didn't care for that much, but maybe you did because you maybe know more about it. But I just about loved every single stinking episode I've seen from this show. Dark Side of the Ring is excellent.
I agree.
I would say someone who just who liked wrestling back in the day but doesn't anymore, you would still love this show. You would still love this show.
Well, they make each story compelling, not just from a wrestling standpoint, from the story standpoint.
The stories, that's exactly right. Someone who may not even know that much about wrestling, period, may enjoy these.
If you like watching odd Hallmark type, these murder documentaries on 17 different streaming services.
Unsolved mysteries and stuff like that. Yeah, see the crime things and stuff.
Murder, She Wrote, all that stuff. Yeah. You would like this show.
Yeah, Angela Lambert's in this too. So, right. But we're just talking about
She trained with Moolah.
That's... Yes, one of Moolah's girls there. Yes, she was. But we're going to talk about the first 6 episodes, or the only 6 episodes that were in season 1, which was really good. They picked some great ones here. First off, Match Made in Heaven, Randy Savage, Miss Elizabeth. It was excellent. What a way to kick it off. Mm-hmm. I think anyone remotely interested in wrestling knows about those two.
Sure.
And knows about their whole history, their whole story. I remember him from back in the day. Everyone was in love with Miss Elizabeth, who didn't think she was hot. And then in the 90s, you still, during the early NWA, NWO, hello, you got to see them both again. That was kind of fun.
Sure.
One of the reasons you got involved with WCW so much is because it had all those old-time wrestlers, kind of brought back some of those people back together. And, of course... for one time in the mid-90s or early 90s, Macho Man Miss Elizabeth got married in the ring, which was
early 90s.
Early 90s. It was a big storyline.
Sure.
You were watching back then, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How much growing up, I'm sure this is a dumb question now that I think about it, you were a big Macho Man fan.
Yeah, I would think anybody that Macho was definitely, Hogan was 1A. It's tough to say if Warrior or Savage was 1B.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the first, as you know, besides Jimmy Snuka, probably high flyers that was very popular.
Yeah, he took a lot of stuff outside the ring, too.
You know, yeah. And so that was kind of unheard of. Mm-hmm. I don't think Hogan ever did things like that.
Hogan didn't leave his feet unless he was going to drop that leg on you, brother.
Unless he was going to drop that leg, and that was about it. But Macho Man...
Then he put his thermos in your face, if you know what that means. If not, Google it, kids. There's some troubling images of Hogan and the thermos.
Well, all right. We're back to that AEW tight tights discussion again. Last week, good to have that one. But you know, this episode's really great. I did not recall how she died. I remember it was an overdose and everything. Miss Elizabeth, who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I did not remember Lex Luger's involvement.
Yep, Luger and her were seeing each other for a couple of years.
And I did not realize a lot of animosity against Luger for years afterwards. Even Eric Bischoff admits that he was not a fan for the longest, which is kind of wild.
I think that people have kind of realized that it wasn't Luger dumping those pills down her throat.
Right. So over the years they've been a little bit more understanding to Lex, and he, for his credit, has been remorseful about it too. Or that's what
talk about said. The fall of Rome, Lex Luger.
Really,
man, jeez.
They should do one about him.
I'm sure they will. Sad story.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it is. And see, Dark Side of the Ring is rife. Wrestling is rife with these type of stories. They could go on for 12 seasons and not get old, and not start picking the B stories.
Sure,
there's tons of stories that are out there that they never got to that even I know about. So, and I'm not the biggest all-time wrestling fan, so there's got to be even more.
Yeah.
Now, they hit some of the highlights. In these 3 seasons, they've done really good so far.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was, for me, that was a strong beginning. Match made in heaven, which was a sad ending too, because I remember when Randy Savage died too. Sad day.
For sure.
Sad day, because seemed to be happy with his life, doing better.
Yeah, he was out of the business.
Jake the Snake had some a good story about him when his paranoia was at his height, but it seems like he was coming down from all that, getting a little bit more calmer in his old age.
But I mean, that lifestyle,
it does it to you.
Yeah, I mean, that was a brutal lifestyle.
And if season 1, no, it's later on. I think it's season 2 where they really talk about how rough that lifestyle and what it kind of turns you into after a while. Of course, the second one, which I'm kind of shocked wasn't the first episode, is the Montreal Screwjob, which everyone knows.
Probably why it wasn't the first episode, because everybody knows enough about it.
Probably was, but the second episode, the one thing that shocked me is how many people started taking credit for that.
Yeah.
Jim Cornette takes credit. Vince Russo takes credit.
Success has many fathers.
Yeah. So, and I've never, because they did a whole documentary, and I watched that Bret Hart documentary that turned into the Montreal Screwjob.
Wrestling with Shadows.
Yes. Everyone, well, I wouldn't say everyone, but wrestling fans have seen that. And I thought I knew everything there was, but I'm glad they showed it from a different perspective.
Sure.
Gave a little bit more information. Those people talking to Vince McMahon about how it was going to work and how it wasn't Vince. It was me as the mastermind. But the best thing about it was I had no earthly idea that Jim Cornette hated Vince Russo so much.
Jim Cornette is incredible when he wants to cut you down verbally.
When he shoots straight for the heart, man.
He will carve you up.
During the credits, the stuff he was saying, I was laughing so hard because he will outlive Vince Russo, and even if he's decrepit in a wheelchair, someone's going to lift him up so he can piss on Vince Russo's grave. It almost reminds me of you don't want me to say it, but you know what I'm going to say. Okay. Yeah, I'm just saying, I won't say who, but I got a message from someone on my answering machine that says, hey, cuckoo, he's dead. Yeah. Blanket, and then made a reference for what he died of, but gave it a crude term and said, I'm sorry, it's still funny. Hope it hurt too. Showing a piss on his grave. That's really funny. It was someone's best. It was one of their finest and darkest moments, but it was really funny. And when Jim Cornette was talking like that, I just want you to know. I just remember.
Well, the person that said that to be compared to Jim Cornette, that's quite the compliment.
Just Jim Cornette was not shy about his feelings and was not coy about how he felt with Vince Russo, and I loved it. In fact, I will say this whole series has really, I've always liked Jim Cornette. He's the historian. He's the one that knows us. He truly cares about the business and will do anything. Whatever's good for the business is good, regardless of whether he likes it or not. He's man enough to admit that. But at the same time, I thought that was all he was. But he has a nice sense of humor, and
he's too smart for his own good.
Yeah, but this series has really elevated him in my opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I've really become I've always liked him, but I thought that he was just one this way, want to talk about this and want to talk about just business, just history and bit, which he's super smart.
Right.
I mean, I think you even said that was the man who should probably lead.
Yeah.
He'd be a good person.
Yeah,
but now I also know why, because he also got a fun side to him, an entertaining side, and he is entertaining. He's probably the most entertaining recurring guest they have on the show, by far. And they have a few other recurring guests too.
Sure.
But by far, I love it when Jim Cornette is in an episode because he just has so much to say on the topic. And he is involved in the topic. I mean,
anyone wants to see Jim Cornette, a great Jim Cornette clip, if you put in Jim Cornette Dairy Queen on YouTube, there is an incredible video from like 1992 shot from a handheld camera.
Okay. I have not seen this.
Well, watch it.
I will.
Incredible.
But so the Dark Side of the Ring Dairy Queen edition should come out.
Yeah.
All right, we're really going to.
He was angrier than a dilly bar for sure.
Okay, so anyway, the next one is the killing of Bruiser Brody. I had no idea who Bruiser Brody was. I absolutely adored this episode. I thought it was amazing. It was so enthralling. Did you know who Bruiser Brody was?
Yeah, I knew him mostly from magazines when I was a kid.
Look, I mean, you think of a scary-looking Jason Momoa,
Correct. That's a perfect way of saying it.
I mean, he was
like zombie Jason Momoa.
Yes. And he was the total package, man. Total package. Just, I mean, can you imagine if he'd? What was this? Late 70s, early 80s, and stuff, or when was it? When was his?
He was big in the 80s.
Big in the 80s. Okay.
Yeah.
If he could have made it. And WWE back in the day.
Bruiser made it. He didn't want to work for Vince.
Oh, he didn't want to. Okay.
That was his whole thing, and that's part of what was his undoing. Is
he wanted his own
Bruiser? He couldn't be trusted. He had issues with if a promoter paid him to come in and say, "Hey, this is what we want." He would wait, for the match and then go, "I ain't doing it."
Ah, okay. It's kind of hold him hostage.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So he did have his
and he was
there.
A very imposing guy. He was 6'6".
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah, big guy.
Muscle, this guy was thick and he was strong and he could hurt someone.
Yeah.
I like how they were saying that when he's walking down through the crowd, people are getting out of the way. Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
even if he's not
chain.
A wrestler. You see someone like that coming down, I'm leaving too.
Yeah.
But I didn't know anything about this guy and was very impressive in a wild ending.
Sad.
Sad. No, definitely sad. Definitely sad. Just that's insane. That's insane. I mean, if everyone doesn't know, he got stabbed in the locker right before a match. I mean, like out in the open, and the police do nothing.
In Puerto Rico.
And the guy who killed him just changed his clothes and came back to work that night as the police were cleaning up the blood and the body and everything.
Yep, sad story.
So crazy. But no, that was a good one. Another one that I did not know anything about, the last of the Von Erichs. And
well, if you watch much about Bruiser, you can watch a lot of. He worked in Dallas a lot with the Von Erichs.
Well, yeah, and they tied that in, I think, a little bit in that episode. I didn't know anything about the Von Erichs. I'd never heard of them before because I don't know any of that old school off the road wrestling. But obviously, they were huge in their market and everything. And then it's really sad. You're talking about sadness. How each son basically fell.
There's like 3 really good documentaries about the Von Erichs. One WWE did, and then there's another one that's independent called The Rise and Fall of World Class.
Do you recommend both of those?
Highly recommend.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm interested in watching them now.
Yeah.
I never knew about the Von Erichs, and that is a sad you talk about tragic. Each death is just it's just
sad.
You keep.
You're like, I want this to be over because I'm worn out.
And then what happened to his dad at the end? I mean, it's just so it's a definite tragedy, and that there's one left, to recount all this.
Kevin.
It's just sad. It's the stuff of movies, you want to say, like in a war, the last man standing.
Kevin lives in Hawaii, like the Swiss Family Robinson now. His boys are wrestlers.
Yeah, his boys are wrestlers. Have they gotten any contracts?
Yeah, they work for MLW out of Florida.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I was thinking that's kind of interesting that they're entering that, and he's okay with it after this such curse. Because everyone in sports can be superstitious, and you're kind of wondering, no, you can't do anything but don't do wrestling. You know,
Well, bad parenting is a curse for anything.
well, that's true too. That's true
where
too.
all that comes
and that's
down
where it all
to.
came down to, and that's what it all boiled down to.
Doesn't matter if you're running a football field or,
That's true.
you know,
No, that's
work
exactly
at the bank.
true.
If you got bad parents and it's that blood's in you.
Yeah, no, very true. And I never, like I said, never known anything about them, but there were 5 of them, correct?
Yep.
5 of them.
David,
And-
Kevin, Carrie, Mike, and then the baby.
Yeah. And, oh, man. Just awful. Just awful. But again, you look at things like, the next 3 are like this. There were Bruiser, Brody, Von Erichs, and then Gorgeous Geno, who we'll talk about in a minute. But those are people that I didn't know. But they just, it's amazing to hear their story, how tragic it was and what had happened to them, and how I could see the greatness in each one of these, wrestlers. Or like the Von Erichs, it's like a stable,
Yeah,
they were they equivalated them to the Hearts of Montreal. They were the Von Erichs of Texas.
Well, yeah, I think, and this kind of links back to the episode where we talked about wrestling and ratings and market share and things like that. Dallas, world class, had a large market share all over. They were all over. They talked about they went to like Israel and stuff.
Yeah, and they were big.
Correct.
There too. So they were like worldwide.
It was an amazing thing. But in Dallas, they were.
Everyone knew they were.
It was like
the first one died. It was like a presidential, funeral procession. Like tons of people showing up. And everything. And
every time I look at a yellow rose, I think about the Von Erichs.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
So did you watch? You knew about these growing up? You knew about the Von Erichs?
I didn't watch it. That TV didn't really bleed into where I was, but definitely from magazines.
I didn't know because in Louisiana we're so close to
Texas.
You're
close. You can get some of it at certain times. But yeah, I definitely got more into it during when I really got into the business again in the mid '90s. But yeah, I think David's life was. It's a sad. They're all sad stories.
They're all sad,
but it's like they said. Harley said it. Rick said it. He was going to be an NWA World Champion, which at that time was just as big as being the WWF champion.
Yeah, just as big, if not bigger, at the time. 'Cause that was
Correct.
still a respected belt. Still had a meaning to it. Where is that? Who has that belt now? Is there
The NWA belt?
Yeah.
Hunter, Triple H. It's in his office.
Oh, they're gone now.
The NWA Dome Globe, the original belt from that day is Hunter owns it.
Oh, okay. But is there official? Because remember they used to
NWA?
float. Yeah, NWA. They're not around anymore.
No, Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins owns NWA, and NWA has a TV show on YouTube.
Seriously. How does a Smashing Punk? That's weird. I did not know this. Wow. Okay. Because that used to be something that the rival would take up. Like TNA had it for a little while, right?
Yeah, they were in a collective
agreement with them.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, hey, but then eventually TNA just dumped them and got their
correct.
own
They came Impact.
belt. And it seems like that's how other places have gotten it. If they get big, then they'll drop the belt because
Correct.
they're done splitting the profit.
Bingo. Like
Okay.
Bruiser.
Okay. NWA, did they have any good wrestlers or anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the one that I keep up with the most out of them is she wrestles for AEW. Her name's Thunder Rosa.
Okay.
She's pretty awesome.
Okay. And then where does Billy Corgan's NWA reside?
Billy Corgan does TV, I want to say out of Atlanta.
Okay. All right. So they're wrestling out of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Nice.
Does studio wrestling the old-fashioned way.
Did not know that. Interesting that it's in his hands. They got to do, I don't know if that's a dark side of the ring, but I want to hear the history of how that belt's kind of moved along and whatnot.
The NWA went through a whole lot of chaos in the late 80s, obviously, with the
Vince.
boom and Vince just
blowing everyone out of the water.
correct, sabotaging everything.
And then they tried to stay relevant, but were just getting left in the dust.
Yeah.
And any comeback was short-lived because whoever they partnered with would switch ways. I wonder why they never thought about buying them out. Maybe they weren't for sale back then.
I think they would have sold to anybody. Nobody wanted it.
Huh. That's kind of weird because, it is historically esteemed.
And then whoever owned it at that time probably wanted more than what they felt it was worth blank versus blank, like most business is.
That's true. All right, so next one here. Mysterious death of gorgeous Geno. Someone else I didn't know about.
Geno Hernandez.
But loved it. Loved it. Loved his history. Loved it. He was going to do anything. His little Quebecian, blonde-haired thing wasn't his idea. Vince's idea. Kind of give him a character. I don't remember him back in the day. I remember the wrestlers he fought and everything.
Yeah, he died early on, and he was based out of Houston. Paul Bosch's promotion.
But was huge in his own world, and then just didn't that success didn't transfer to WWE like they wanted.
Well, he didn't want to go. that was the whole thing. He died
because he lost all of his stars though to it, right? Isn't that
well,
right?
Paul,
or at least that's what they
were.
Well,
Paul Bosch did kind of sell out to Vince because that's why Bruce Pritchard went there. But Geno could have went to Crockett because Tully was there. Tully Blanchard is who he tagged with there.
Okay. So
before he was with Chris Adams in World Class.
Okay. So why did he decide to go to?
I think he liked being a hot shot in Houston. He ran with a different crowd. From what Tully has said.
Okay, because they didn't mention this in the documentary or the episode.
Well, you got to think the travel is drastically different. He worked Texas, which Texas is a giant state, but you had different parts. Houston was different from Dallas, and
I don't deny that. I see where you're saying. That wasn't expressed in the episode.
Yeah,
that would have been interesting. And of course, Dark Side of the Ring. They have to go into his whole mafia. What, Canadian mafia connections?
I think he was tied up in something pretty dangerous from obviously the crowd he ran with. And this is from Tully Blanchard Shoot. He said that Geno died with more cocaine in his stomach.
Oh, well, they didn't say
then it could have even killed somebody. Well, I think a lot of this is there's all kinds of different stuff with this. But Geno died with a ton of cocaine in his system that Tully kind of hinted that someone must have put in his system.
Right.
That he could not have taken that much of it.
Well, now I hope I'm thinking about the same episode because this one says that he was alone in his house.
You're talking about Dino Bravo.
I'm getting them mixed up then.
Yeah.
That was another episode.
Dino Bravo.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, Dino Bravo is season 2.
Okay. Gorgeous Geno was who then?
Geno Hernandez, yeah.
Okay, no. Now I do know. Got it mixed up.
Yep.
Thank you, you're right. Got it mixed up.
When you said the
there.
blonde hair, that was what threw me off.
That was the wrong one. That was Dino. This one was Gorgeous Geno. I know who this one is. The big talker, big cars.
Yeah, could have been a horseman.
Hair. Got it who it was. Okay, now I know. This was the one out of all the episodes that I cared the least about.
Okay, why?
It did not interest me. I don't know why, but for some reason I wasn't invested.
I think that
they finally got a no name that just to me wasn't. It was generic, big shot, hanging out with the wrong people and whatnot. Okay, I see nothing special from a million other stories I've seen. I did see something different with Bruiser Brody. I saw something different with the Von Erichs. I saw the story there, even though I didn't know the wrestler, and I came to really enjoy those episodes. Yeah. But with Gorgeous Geno, this is the one. I told you there's one episode that just, out of all of them, that just didn't pull me in or didn't engage me, and this was this one. And just because it felt so run of the mill.
Well, they focused more on the mystery of his death, rather than make him care about who he was as a person or his.
That could be it, but for me, it just didn't pull me in. You enjoyed this one? Do you know about him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're right. I'm thinking about the Dino one, which I did enjoy. So this is one I did not. This is the only one I won't say this about any other episode that I've seen so far that as not been good, because I think they've all been excellent. But this is one that just didn't care. Switching one to that I did care was their little finale, the Fabulous Moolah. That was super interesting. I like how they had the people for and against. We got to see both sides. It was almost left up to you decide at the end, which I thought was nice.
Always let the viewer decide.
Always. Well, I think they did a pretty fair job balancing out. You had people say, no, Mama wasn't like that. Her daughter, the wrestler, I think her name was Bambi, right? Talking about how they're coming out against her now. They wouldn't say anything before, but it wasn't like that. Then you had I don't know, it was Pocahontas or something. What was her name?
I can't remember.
Pocahontas.
Sorry.
But, then it had her story and how she was treated.
Ladies wrestlers were pretty, this kind of goes back to that story we were just talking about from Dark Side of the 90s. There's a reason why all the culture has changed in the past drastically, because things were not done well. But people were not treated equally.
No, they weren't. Moolah did grab her destiny by the reins and create her own,
Right, she dealt with.
She was a force to be reckoned with back in the day. People knew who she was. She was respected. She commanded that respect. She did all the things they said were nice about. She did hold on to the belt for decades, regardless. But she was famous. She was popular. People knew her. People still loved her. Who was it? Wendy
Richter.
Richter, which I do remember her from the 80s. Had a different story to tell too. And I don't think everyone was treated equally. I think some people were kind of cast aside. That was the business. Them the breaks, kid. Moolah didn't get, those breaks.
Yeah,
so
I think
why should she give them to anyone else?
Yeah, I think anyone that watches these episodes that looks at wrestling from what we see in the past 20 years, this was a business that was created out of carnival.
Yep.
It was a lot of sleight of hand. That kind of stuff, and you had a lot of. It was an outlaw type thing,
right?
These guys were not guys that were going to go work at Sears. These were guys that wanted to make $50 to $100 a night, drive all around town, and get into whatever trouble they could get into, and live that kind of lifestyle. It was drastically different.
No, drastically different. And again, Moolah, they had some things that you may say, oh, she was a wicked person. But at the same time, they did some good counterbalance there that, hey, look, this one was taking bumps when she was in her 70s. She
trained a lot of people.
I remember her in the WWE Attitude days,
Sure.
Taking some bumps as an old lady. She and Mae Young just knocking out. So she seemed to be, still respecting the business, still willing to participate in everything. And I do. The reason that I like this episode is because it gave you two perspectives and then let you decide. It wasn't like, look how awful her life, or look how awful she's made life living here for other people. It wasn't necessarily like the other stories, not tragic endings, more of a, like you said, you decide.
A whodunit.
Yeah, a whodunit. This one was more just like, what she did is she came up when there were no women wrestlers, and basically said, no, we can do some stuff here, and brought out some good talent and kind of promoted it back when it wasn't getting its fair share still.
Sure.
But was moving in a direction. She obviously had an impact. What is your opinion of Mae Young, the Fabulous Moolah? Love or hate? Where are you?
I don't know if I would say love or hate. I think that she ran like a puppy mill of people.
Right. That's true.
Unfortunately, but that's what the business was.
What'd you expect?
Like those girls got into that business. They had nothing else to fall back on.
Yeah.
You put desperate people in desperate situations, and you kind of, she gave them somewhere to stay. She gave them something to do, but she put them in situations that probably they weren't equipped for to a certain degree.
One thing I didn't believe at all was Wendy Richter when she said she didn't realize she was losing to Fabulous Moolah that one match.
Well,
Do you believe it?
If somebody tells you one thing and then they grab a hold of you and they twist your arm down and they hit your pressure points and you can't move, doesn't matter what somebody thought was going to happen.
I know. I was just thinking.
Which is kind of back to the Bruiser Brody thing.
But again, I like how they left it up to you.
Yeah.
To decide.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes for a good story for her to go. But, you know, that is what's always been said is, you know, she got a little too big for her britches. She said, hey, I'm the top star. I should be up here with Hogan. And
yeah. Yeah, no, that's true too.
There's only one Hogan
She
brother.
got her big push, which made her that big star, and then she wanted that equal money, and you're not equal. You're not equal as far as draws go. You're popular, but you ain't a Hogan, like you said.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's true, too. So, all right. Well, there you have it. There's season 1, folks, which I'll be honest, regardless of what you think of wrestling, I think you'd be interested in seeing these. I think it's just a really awesome series. Season 1 as a whole?
Oh, yeah. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So there you go, folks. Hey, if you've seen it, if you've seen season 1, let us know. What were your favorite episodes and why? And we'll see you next time on Princes of the Universe.